Imagine waking up in a country where your daughter can no longer attend secondary school, or your wife can no longer work, or imagine waking up in a country where you yourself as a woman can no longer finish your education, you can no longer go to the university, you can no longer complete your masters even though you are in your final year, you can no longer do things that is going to better your life, all in the name of a morality law that a certain government in your country has upholded or is trying to uphold against the rights of women. Welcome to another episode of The Lens of the Witch, and of course, it's your favorite host, the beautiful witch. Women have been excluded from jobs, universities, sports, politics, and major parts of public life. In this video, we will examine what has changed. Since the Taliban returned to power in 2021, Afghanistan has become the only country in the world where girls are banned from secondary school. Why international organizations describe it as severe women's rights crisis, and what the recent events in Herat has revealed about the ongoing enforcement of the moral laws in Afghanistan. For millions of women in Afghanistan, this is no longer an imagination. This is the sad reality, an unfortunate one, if we must say. It's crazy, right? When they say you don't know what you have until you lose it. Imagine not being able to work, not being able to go to school. Imagine having to drop out in your masters, not because something happened to you, not because you can no longer afford it, not because anything is wrong with your brain or something, but because a government in your country or in your region has said, you know what, right now, women are no longer worth anything. We don't want them to participate in anything. That is basically shattering hopes and lives of women's dreams and aspirations. For nearly 5 years, Afghanistan has been living through an experiment unlike anything else in the world. And so today, Afghanistan is the only country on earth where girls can no longer attend secondary school, where women can no longer take part in public life, where women are banned from politics, they are banned from sports, they are banned from going to school, they are banned from working, they are banned from literally everything that constitutes fundamental human rights as a human being, most especially as a woman. So millions of girls who once dreamed of becoming doctors, teachers, journalists, surgeons, and so on and so forth, now wake up with shattered dreams and aspirations. Female business owners now find themselves locked out of their own businesses. Teachers, female lecturers, female doctors now find themselves locked out of their own profession, something that they studied hard, they worked hard, they studied day and night, burnt candles to be able to achieve, and all of a sudden, they are locked out of this. But this story is not just about education. It is about what happens when half of a country's population is systematically removed from public life. And perhaps more importantly, it is about what this means for the Afghanistan's future. This is the story of the Afghanistan lost generation of girls. When the Taliban returned to power in August 2021, following the fall of the Afghan government and the withdrawal of international forces, many Afghans feared that the country would return to the strict social policies that characterized the Taliban rule during the 1990s. Now, at that time, the Taliban officials attempted to reassure both Afghan citizens and the international community. The spokesman stated that women will be allowed to work and study within what is described as the framework of the Islamic law. Many observers remained skeptical, but only a few anticipated the scale and speed of the restrictions that would follow over the years. Now, within 3 months of this situation, girls in Afghanistan were informed that they would no longer be allowed to return to school. The decision initially appeared temporary. I mean, that was what they were told, that you will not go to school for a period of time. School administrators, teachers, parents, families, students, pupils, girls were told to wait. Now, in the course of waiting, days became weeks, weeks became months, and month is now turning into years. School has not reopened. And as of today, millions of Afghan girls remain excluded from education beyond the primary level. So, do you know the kind of psychological effect this would have on the girls and the women? You've been going to school. As a matter of fact, you've probably done your WAEC or you've done your O level or A level or whatever they call it there. And all of a sudden, they're telling you can't go back to school. As far as they come to you as if they have your best interest at heart. Or you can't come to school because something, something, something. You can't go to school because this has happened, this has happened. And then time starts to pass by. Months go, days go, weeks go, years go, and school is not opening anytime soon. And guess what? There is no even hope that school will be open to girls and women in the nearest future. And for a generation of young women, the path to higher education was effectively cut off before it could even begin. And guess what? This restriction did not just stop at secondary schools or going to school entirely. In December 2022, the Taliban announced the ban on women attending universities. This decision immediately halted the education of thousands of female students across the country. Many were only a few months away from graduating. Others had spent years preparing for careers in medicine, engineering, law, education, and public service. All of a sudden, university gates closed, lecture halls got empty, Years of academic effort suddenly became meaningless. For countless families, the dreams they had invested in their daughters disappeared overnight. The consequences of this are extended beyond individual students. Universities are where countries train future professionals like doctors, teachers, researchers, scientists, engineers. But when women are excluded from higher education, the impact is not limited to one generation. It affects the entire workforce for decades. Now, guess what? The educational crisis has already begun providing visible consequences. International organizations warn that Afghanistan may face severe shortages in female healthcare workers. This is particularly significant because cultural norms in many parts of Afghanistan requires that female get medical treatment from female professionals whenever possible. Now, do you see how this whole situation is causing problems for generations to come and even for the current generation? Because these are the same people that would say, oh, you cannot treat my wife because I want a female doctor to attend to her. If my wife is in labor, she has to be attended to by a female doctor or a midwife or something. And these same people do not think or consider the possibilities that halting educations of girls and women is going to later bring a lot of consequences, especially in this case, because if girls do not go to school, if they don't attend universities, if they don't become trained professionals, if they don't become doctors, if they don't become, these health workers that they claim that must treat their wives, who then is going to treat their wives? Will they be able to allow men to attend to their pregnant wife? Will they be able to allow male gynecologists to attend to their pregnant wives, their sisters, their daughters? Do you see how this situation is contradicting to their norm or to their culture, and they are not even considering these consequences? What is the consequence? If girls cannot complete secondary education and women cannot attend university, the pipeline that produces doctors, nurses, healthcare specialists, female healthcare specialists to be precise, begins to collapse. Now, the same challenge applies to education itself. Without educated women, there are fewer female teachers. Without female teachers, fewer girls are able to attend school. The result becomes a self reinforcing cycle, a cycle that grows more difficult to reverse with each passing year. Now, this is another crazy part because education was only the beginning of the restrictions. As restrictions expanded, women found themselves increasingly excluded from public life. Many government jobs disappeared. Women working in public administrations were removed from their positions. Employment opportunities narrowed. International organizations and humanitarian groups faced growing restrictions employing women. As a result of this, political participation effectively vanished. And today, there are no women in the Taliban cabinet. There are no women participating in national decision-making institutions. And one half of Afghanistan population has virtually no representation within the structures that govern the country. Now, the restrictions also extended beyond schools and workplaces. Women faced limitations on travel and movement, and in many circumstances, women were expected to travel with a male guardian, commonly referred to as maram. Access to public spaces remained increasingly restricted, parks were closed to women, gyms were no longer accessible, sports activities denied, and beauty salons, one of the few sectors that continuously provided employment for women, got shut down. The restrictions were also extended to how women could appear in public. In 2022, the Taliban authorities issued guidance stating that women should cover their face and bodies whenever they are outside their homes, with full body burqa presented as the preferred form of dress. And more recently, morality regulations have reinforced requirements for women to wear loose, long, and full-flowing covered dresses that covers their entire body and also conceals their face in public. Now, these rules are enforced by the ministry for the propagation of virtue and prevention of vice. Like what vice? So you're saying that women are asked to cover themselves up because they don't want men to be tempted. And guess what? There are people that support this whole system saying it regulates cultural and moral values, religious values. But we can all see that this is literally restrictions of women's rights, basic means of life, basic fundamental rights are literally taken away from women. And what does this mean? Women's visibility in public spaces are completely regulated. That means, as a woman, you cannot say, oh, I want to go out with my girls. You cannot say, I want to go to work. You cannot say, I want to go shopping. You cannot say, I want to go and hang out with my friends. You cannot say, I want to go and see a movie. You cannot say, I want to go and do something for myself. I need some space without a male guardian following you around, taking you around like a puppet. Now, I hope you can see the pattern that is coming up here, a gradual reduction of women's visibility in the Afghan society. The Taliban maintains that its policies are based on the interpretation of the Islam principles and Afghan cultural values. Supporters of the movement also argue that these policies preserve social order and religious traditions. The United Nations, human rights organizations, and numerous Islamic scholars around the world have condemned these restrictions. They argue that denying education and employment opportunities to women violates their fundamental rights and undermines Afghanistan's development. And the debate is often presented as a conflict between culture and rights. But there is another dimension that receives less attention, and that is economics. Every modern economy depends on human capital, the knowledge, skills, and productivity of its people. Now, when half of a country's population is prevented from fully participating in education and employment, economic growth becomes significantly more difficult. The consequences are measurable. Lower workforce participation, reduced household incomes, fewer skilled professionals, lower tax revenues, reduced innovation, and slower economic development. Countries invest in education because educated citizens create economic value. And when millions of girls are prevented from developing their potentials, the economic cost extends far beyond individual lives and it affects national prosperity itself. The social consequences may be even more profound. Young girls expected to continue their education now face a future filled with uncertainty. Many spend years waiting for the policies to change. Others experience increasing isolation as opportunities disappear right before their eyes. The psychological impact of these restrictions remains difficult to measure, but aid organizations report growing concerns about mental health, social exclusion, and the loss of hope among many young Afghan women. Yet, one of the most surprising findings come from surveys conducted inside Afghanistan itself. Despite international assumptions that restrictions reflect public opinion, polling conducted with Afghan citizens suggests something entirely different. According to research supported by the UN Women, an overwhelming majority of Afghan adults support access to education for girls. More than 9 out of 10 respondents expressed support for girls attending secondary school. Now, if these findings accurately reflect public opinion, they challenge a common narrative. Now, this means that the restrictions represent the policies of only those in power, the Taliban, and they do not necessarily represent the wishes of Afghan society as a whole. Recent events suggest that tensions surrounding these policies continue to grow, and reports from Herat in 2026 described protests following allegations that women have been detained for violating dress regulations. Witnesses reported arrests, injuries, and even death. Why? Because a woman has refused to dress in a certain way that they're trying to enforce. United Nations officials have expressed concern and calls for respect for human rights. The Taliban authorities disputed some of the allegations. As with many developments in Afghanistan, establishing a complete picture remains difficult. The debate over women's rights in Afghanistan is far from settled. It remains one of the defining political and social issues facing the country. 5 whole years after the Taliban's return to power, the central questions remain unanswered. Can a country thrive when millions of its girls are denied education? Can an economy prosper when half of its population faces barrier to participation? Can a nation build itself while limiting the potential of an entire generation? Now, these questions are not about ideology. They are questions about outcomes. And the answers will shape Afghanistan for decades to come because long after governments change, policies evolve, and political movements rise or falls, the consequences of denying opportunity to a generation can remain visible for a lifetime. For millions of Afghan girls, the future is still being written, and the world continues to watch. Please answer this question in the comment. If as a woman you wake up one day and your opportunities have vanished right before your eyes without the ability to fight or question that authority, what is going to be your next move? What are you going to do? And as a woman, would you be able to survive the inability to do anything on your own, including go to school, work, make a living, or do basic things of life? Do you genuinely think that a society can thrive where women are denied rights to participation? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Please don't forget to like, share, and also hit the subscribe button. And please hit the notification bell so that as soon as I drop new videos, you'll be notified and you'll be the first to watch. Thank you very much for joining today's episode, and I'll see you in the next video. Do have a wonderful day.